And so that is what I wanted to tell you on the results of our research work. Thank you.
Now we finish our telecast. Allow me, on behalf of the audience, to thank you, Mr. Parker, and you, Miss Smith, for a most interesting talk on your research work and about the conference. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
This is the end of our program. Goodbye, everybody.
It took us less time than we had expected. We have more than 2 hours left. What about taking a walk along the Neva? Or visiting some other places? What do you say, Professor?
I see, Anne. You want to make the most of these 2 hours to get a better knowledge of this country.
Of course I do. We've been to Moscow. We've seen Leningrad. But I wish we had learnt more about the country in general.
Oh, yes. I wish we had.
Is there anything wrong? What is it? Can I help you?
Oh, Mr. Kotov, you're very kind. But it would take a magician to help us.
You know, Mr. Kotov, what the work of a biochemist means? His life is limited to his laboratory. And one is longing to see the world.
But most of all, we wanted to see this country.
Oh, yes. We wanted to see Soviet Russia. We wanted to see it with our own eyes.
We are so fortunate that we've been able to visit the Soviet Union. We've been here for 10 days, and all this time, we haven't had a moment to spare. We had a day in Moscow. We spent 3 hours sightseeing in a coach about your capital. Then we came to Leningrad. There's been the conference. We've been meeting our colleagues.
We are leaving now, and we still know so little about Soviet people. And we know about your country as little as we did 10 days ago.
Now, Professor Parker and myself have been discussing what we are to do during the 2 hours left before our departure. This is just where we need a magician.
My dear friends, you must have forgotten that you're at the television studio now. And television is the greatest magician of our times. Let's make use of it.
What do you mean?
If you don't mind, I suggest seeing some films. And in 30 minutes, you will learn about the Soviet Union more than some tourists will do in a month.
Is it possible to do it right now?
I'll try to become a magician. I'll do my best to select the necessary films and arrange the show.
How wonderful. Do try, Mr. Magician.
All right.
Oh, this is the Admiralty. I recognized it at once.
As far as I know, the spire of the tower and the ship on it have become the emblem of this city. Oh, the monument to Peter the Great. He is the founder of the city.
Oh, that's a very beautiful place, the embankment. I've taken several snapshots of it. Oh, I know that. That's a monument to Lenin. And what building is that?
I don't know. We haven't been there.
What a great piece of luck. We may go to the theater. They'll show us some films there.
Mr. Kotov, is this another Russian miracle?
Yes, it is.
Mr. Kotov, what building is this?
Oh, this is Smolny. In the days of the Great October Socialist Revolution of 1917, this was the headquarters of the uprising. From Smolny, Lenin directed the armed uprising of workers, peasants, soldiers, and sailors. It was here in Smolny that Soviet power was proclaimed. But if you don't mind, I'll go on with my story in the theater.
Oh, of course.
Let's hurry.
This way, please.
We know a little about the Soviet Union. The Soviet Union was formed in place of Tsarist Russia after the October Revolution in 1917.
I'm afraid, Mr. Parker, that's not quite so. It's true that the Great October Socialist Revolution took place in 1917, but the Union of the Soviet Socialist Republics was formed on Lenin's initiative 5 years later, in December 1922.
Oh, I see. Would you mind speaking about it in detail?
But let me show you the film. You'll see some unique scenes. Moscow, the 30th of December 1922. The First Congress of Soviets of the USSR. These are delegates to the First All-Union Congress of Soviets. the representatives of workers and peasants of various nationalities. The First Congress of Soviets approved the declaration of the formation of the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics and the Treaty on the voluntary union of the first four republics, the Russian Soviet Federative Socialist Republic, the Ukrainian and Belarusian republics, and the Federation of the Transcaucasian republics. Thus was founded our multinational state, the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics. But had it been preceded by 5 long years of war, of hardships, of devastation. On the 25th of October 1917, Lenin announced the victory of the Socialist Revolution. The first decrees of the Soviet state were the decree on peace. The workers' and peasants' government suggested that all the belligerent countries should start negotiations on peace. The decree on land. Land was proclaimed to be the property of the people and was granted to the peasants. The Declaration of Rights of the Peoples of Russia proclaimed the equality of all the nations and also gave them the right to self-determination up to secession. But the imperialists didn't want to admit the fact of the existence of the state of the working people. Germany occupied the Ukraine, Belarus, and the Baltic countries. American and British troops landed in the north. The French in the south. The Japanese invaded the Far East. Everywhere the invaders restored the former regime, annihilated thousands of Soviet people. Supported by the invaders, the interior counter-revolution rose in the country. Krasnov and Mamontov on the Don, Kornilov and Denikin in the North Caucasus, Kolchak in Siberia. They all were very well armed. Three-quarters of the territory of Russia were in the hands of the invaders and the White Guard. The Soviet Republic was encircled and cut off from its raw material and food resources. The socialist motherland is in danger. All the working people, old and young alike, rose to defend the achievements of the revolution. 50% of the communists and young Communist League members volunteered for the Red Army. Lenin's appeal, "Everything for the front," was made the main motto of the Republic. The country was transformed into a military camp. The Red Army, tempered on the battlefields of the revolution, defeated the invaders in the counter-revolution at all fronts, and the victory was won. Not a single invader was left on the Soviet land. But there remained extreme devastation and poverty in the country. There were scores of thousands of orphans and homeless children. It was impossible to overcome the devastation, to create a modern economy, to overcome the ancient backwardness of the remotest parts of Tsarist Russia, to defend the socialist motherland without uniting the Soviet republics into a single state. Now the Soviet Union comprises 15 Soviet socialist republics enjoying equal rights. They include 18 autonomous republics, 10 autonomous regions, and 10 national areas.
Excuse me, Mr. Kodov, but I don't quite understand what is meant by autonomous republics, autonomous regions, and besides by national areas.
I'm willing to explain it to you now. Our Constitution ensures equal rights to all nationalities, to all national minorities. Therefore, Union republics may contain autonomous republics. The latter are also sovereign states with plenary authority on their territory, though the native population makes but a small percentage of the entire population of the Union Republic. Even the smallest national minorities have their own state formation, such as autonomous regions and national areas.
That's clear now. But will you go on with your story?
Yes, please go on, chronologically if possible.
Then I should be telling you now about the restoration of our destroyed economy. But instead, I'd better return to the year 1920. That year, on Lenin's direction, the famous Goldar Plan was launched.
What a strange name. What does it mean?
It's the Russian abbreviation for the plan of the national electrification of Russia. It was the first scientifically based plan, the prototype of our plans today. The genius of Lenin has also manifested itself in the fact that Lenin was the first to comprehend the full significance of power supply problems. Lenin said, socialism is Soviet power plus electrification of all the country. Such a plan, under the conditions of unprecedented devastation, seemed absolutely impossible. The writer Herbert Wells called Lenin the Kremlin dreamer, but this plan was realized ahead of time. The realization of the first 5-year plans began, which laid the basis for heavy industry, without which we couldn't have retained our independence. You see the construction of the first Soviet plant of black metallurgy, the Komsomol Magnitka. The Soviet youth worked with tremendous enthusiasm on this construction site in the Urals. It was one of the first feats of labor in the glorious history of the young Communist League. The biggest hydropower station in Europe, Dnieprogas, was built on the Dnieper. The first Soviet automobiles and tractors were produced. The giant tractor producing plant was built in Stalingrad. The new railway connecting Turkestan and Siberia, Turksib, was built. People, for the first time in history freed from exploitation, worked with enthusiasm. The plans were realized ahead of time with unprecedented rapidity. The best workers were called the Stakhanovites, after the famous miner Alexei Stakhanov. The industrialization facilitated the socialist reconstruction of the village. The peasantry were united into rural economic cooperatives called collective farms. The country struggled against general illiteracy. Everyone went to learn, and by the year 1939, illiteracy had been practically eliminated.
What do you mean by total illiteracy?
It means that virtually 3/4 of the population of Tsarist Russia could neither read nor write. And among the working people, this proportion was still higher.
In the course of 20 years, we've eliminated illiteracy. It's a tremendous achievement.
Oh yes, your people have overcome many difficulties.
That's right. But the most terrible ordeal awaited us yet.
You mean the war?
Yes, the Great Patriotic War. The armed hordes of fascists treacherously attacked our country. They had invaded almost the whole of Europe and were sure of a new victory. The Soviet people rose to defend our motherland. The warriors of the Soviet army didn't spare their lives in the struggle against the invaders. They fought for every inch of our native land. On the territories occupied by the enemy, the partisan movement was very strong. Death awaited the occupants everywhere. The victory was fought for not only at the fronts, but also at the plants, at the factories, and on the fields of the collective farms. By defeating fascism, the Soviet army liberated almost the whole of Europe that had been occupied by the fascists. The war annihilated 20 million Soviet people, scores of thousands of towns and villages. The victory was gained by all nationalities of the Soviet Union. For their service in battle in the Great Patriotic War, military reward was given to 7 million people, representing 193 nationalities of the Soviet Union.
The Soviet Union has saved the whole world from fascism. I want to say that we remember it.
Oh yes, we do, Mr. Kotov. Believe us, we really do.
This is what I'd like to say. The whole world knows what a mighty power your country has become, with a highly developed industry. And your space achievements, they are just striking. Supernatural forces must have helped you. I'm joking, of course. But how can one otherwise explain such unprecedented progress?
No, Mr. Parker, no miracles whatsoever. What helped us to solve the most complicated problems is the moral and political unity of our people headed by the Communist Party. It's also the advantages of the socialist system of economy and selfless labor of the Soviet people. Our progress is the result of the joint effort of all fraternal republics. Watch these pictures, please. Powerful lorries that are run in Kazakhstan and in Siberia are made by workers of Belarusia. The oil of Siberia and the Tatar Republic reaches the industrial enterprises all over the country by gigantic pipelines. often from the republics of Middle Asia, provides the textile industry of the Baltic countries and of Russia with raw materials, while the finished products are also distributed all over the country. TV sets and radio sets from Latvia are an integral part of the present-day mode of life in Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzia. During the years of Soviet power, all the Soviet republics have created their own industrial bases and mechanized agriculture. And now, you'll see an old Uzbek custom.
Oh, that's very interesting. Some festival? A ritual dance?
No, there'll be no ritual dances here, but it's a fine custom. The Uzbek for this custom is Hoshar. If anyone wants a house, then Hoshar is announced and the folks of the village are building the house all together, just like one family. Our fraternal republics also make one family. The entire country gave help to Tashkent, ruined by the earthquake, and it has become much more beautiful. Now the representatives of all the Soviet republics work on every construction site in our country. They also work at the biggest lorry producing plant in the world, the Kama plant, Kamaz. They also work on the Baikal-Amur main line, and on the Nurek power station in Tajikistan. That is the all-union Hoshar of the fraternal Soviet republics.
Mr. Kotov,
Yes?
may I ask you a question?
Please do, Mr. Parker.
Why do you keep saying Soviet? The Soviet Union? Soviet republics? Soviet people? What does this term mean?
You know, Mr. Parker, we're often asked this question by our foreign guests, and the film that I'd like you to see now will help to answer this question.
Then let's see it.
We still have time.
All right. The Constitution of the USSR. All power in the USSR is vested in the working people of town and country as represented by the Soviets of Working People's Deputies. There is no other organ of power but the Soviets. All the Soviets are links in the single chain of state authority. The USSR Supreme Soviet and the Supreme Soviets of all the Union and autonomous republics exercise the legislative power. They pass laws. Local government comprises aerial, regional Soviets, district, town, settlement and rural Soviets of Working People's Deputies. The Supreme Soviet consists of two chambers enjoying equal rights, the Soviet of the Union and the Soviet of Nationalities.
That's strange. In our country, the second chamber, the House of Lords, is retained only in memory of medieval customs. But why does the Soviet state want the second chamber?
The deputy of the Soviet of the Union represents all the citizens of his electoral district. To guarantee equal representation of all national republics and national regions without exception, the Soviet higher organ of power includes the Soviet of Nationalities, to which each of the republics elect the same number of deputies irrespective of its territory or population, 25 deputies each. 11 deputies are elected from each autonomous republic, 5 from each autonomous region, and 1 from each national area. A law is considered adopted if passed by both chambers of the Supreme Soviet. In the same way, the supreme governmental bodies are established. Laws are passed by the parliamentary sessions of the Supreme Soviet of the USSR. During the periods between parliamentary sessions, the Presidium of the USSR Supreme Soviet debates and decides all important state issues. 2.5 million people are deputies to the Soviets. Voting to all Soviets from top to bottom is carried out on the basis of universal, equal, and direct suffrage and by secret ballot. Every time, the elections demonstrate the unity of our people and their solidarity with the Communist Party.
Well, Mr. Parker, that's the answer to a question.
Thank you. That was really a most exhaustive answer.
We still have time, and I could say a few words about education, science, and culture.
This is just the thing that interests me. I was going to ask you about it.
Good.
The extension to universal 10-year secondary education is being carried out in the USSR. This means that 10-year schooling will become compulsory for all Soviet children. Higher education in the USSR is free. The Moscow State University. 25,000 students of all nationalities of the Soviet Union study there. Students receive grants.
I wonder what the total number of students in the USSR is.
Now, there are about 5 million students of colleges of higher education and universities, and including those of technical colleges, that is specialized secondary schools, the total number of students comes up to 10 million. For those who choose arts as their profession, there are various studios, art schools, and special institutes in every national republic. Carefully preserved national art enriches modern socialist culture. Classical ballet has become a part of the national culture of a people who before the revolution had no idea whatsoever what theater meant. Soviet science unites the scholars of all republics. Apart from the Academy of Sciences of the USSR, there is a Republican Academy of Sciences in every republic. For the first time in history, the progress of science has become a matter of national importance. The celebration of the 250th anniversary of the Academy of Sciences has become a magnificent display of outstanding scientific achievements. The role of the Leninist Communist Party is always growing in the life of our country. At the congresses of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union, the results of our work are summed up and new important plans are made for building communism in the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics.
Mr. Kotov, words fail us to express our gratitude for this most wonderful trip.
Thank you so much. We've learnt a lot about your country.
I'd like so much to see Central Asia, the Transcaucasian republics. How about you, Anne?
I'm all for it. Count me in.
You're most welcome.